Welcome to ACF Chefs Forum. Now, more than ever, it's important for culinarians to connect, to share, and to offer inspiration and mentorship, which is exactly why we're excited to have experts here with information just for you, the leaders and future leaders of the food service industry. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm delighted to welcome you to a very special webinar today and appreciate you tuning in for this presentation on plant-forward cuisine, live from Hyde Park, New York. Today, we'll be taking questions for the chef live during the webinar as we are able, so please use the chat function to collaborate with other chefs and culinary students tuning in, and the Q&A function to pose questions to today's featured chef. All right, so let's get the conversation going in the chat. I see many of you have started already. Please let us know where you're tuning in from today. And I hope you're ready to be inspired. I'm actually very excited today. I am a CI graduate and former staff member, so we are fortunate to have a talented chef instructor here to inspire us. A little bit of background on today's chef. Chef David Bruno's industry experience spans over 35 years, focusing on culinary excellence, working in restaurants, clubs, hotels, and in education, and as a culinary competitor. Chef Bruno has served as Associate Professor of Culinary Arts at the Culinary Institute of America, the CIA, for over 20 years and currently serves on the Academic Standards Committee. For the past 14 years, he's worked in continuing education, which he has focused on food enthusiast classes, professional classes, along with research and development for outside clients. And now he's back in the instruction kitchen. So Chef, on behalf of all of the professional chefs and culinary students and future chefs who are tuning in today, we're thrilled to have you here with us. And at this time, I'll pass the presentation over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Jackie. That was very nice of you. And welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be in front of you, the ACF and all of the members doing a little demo today. I thought I would start the demo off by just chatting a little bit about some key factors that I use to develop dishes and how I came about developing this plant-forward dish today. One of the things that I look at is components. Obviously, I think the interest and creating interest is often driven by components. More components generally, for me, equals more interest. And we want to get our customer excited about that particular dish or item. One of the other things is, how do we create craveability? Craveability, I think, is created with diversity of ingredients. And in this case, I chose this new wave plant-forward shrimp item that I've been exposed to a while ago and didn't really give it a lot of thought, but in developing this particular dish, I wanted to sort of see and work with this particular product called New Wave Plant-Based Shrimp. I think increasingly we're seeing new products that are focused on plant-based, items that may look like, an item that we may have eaten in the past. And I think this plant-forward shrimp item, serves a purpose. And I think as chefs, we need to think about how we can utilize these ingredients to get our customers excited. I also think about the yin and yang effect, about balance and the push and pull that, a dish needs to have. And I always ask myself this question when I develop a dish, what does my dish have? What does my dish need? And I think if you ask yourself that question, you can develop your dish with, a little bit more, and maybe it will find out what your dish is missing. Is it too rich? Does it need a little more acid? So that question helps me, develop the dish more fully, is asking what your dish has, what your dish might need. And I think we all know about umami and the use of umami and how that can actually, help us. We've known about umami since the Japanese scientists discovered it over a century ago. So it's been around for a while, but increasingly as chefs, we are incorporating more of natural umami flavor characteristics. And I think I've included some of them here today. So we'll talk about that a little bit more if time permits a little later. Is the dish driven around themes or seasonality? Is it driven around a special occasion? That's something that I'm looking at. What is the use of acid? What is the use of spice? And how does texture play a role in any given dish? So those are some of the key factors that helps me develop a dish. And I'm sure many of you use similar factors in developing dishes along the way. So there are some more things that we want to talk about if time permits, but I do want to get started in some of the cooking. But I want to try and bring in the Future 50 Foods report that's out there. There's 50 foods that have been identified that are there to sort of help the planet be healthier and help us as humans be healthier too. So they've identified, these 50 foods that play a role or can play a role in helping the planet be more sustainable and helping us be a little bit more, healthier as well. I think we all are aware that, we have about almost 8 billion people on the planet now, and it's scheduled to grow by 2050 to 10 billion people. And, with that said, our global food systems need to be transformed, and we all need to play a part in that. So we can come back to that a little bit, but I want to get started. And the first thing is I've created this dish, the Savory Chickpea Wild Rice Crisp with a vegan shrimp and a Cashew-Cilantro Cream. And it really does stem around the interest and craveability around this plant-based shrimp item. But the first thing I want to do is get the pancake batter made. And one of the things that we're going to use here is chickpea flour. And I love chickpea flour because it has that nuttiness flavor profile that, brings some interest. And we're going to bake it and then later crisp it up. So and this is also part of the, it's on the 50 Foods, report as well. So that's one of the reasons why I chose it. So I have the chickpea flour in a stainless steel bowl, and I have oat milk, and that's also one of the food products that's on the 50 Food report. So I'm going to add the oat milk, and you can make your homemade oat milk by soaking oats in some water and then pureeing them and blending them and straining it. We also have a little water, so that's going to go in. We also have some nutritional yeast. And, this particular product is interesting for those folks who may be practicing veganism. It's high in B vitamins, which is one of the vitamins that might be a little challenging to get into your diet. So it also has those umami, meaty characteristics that can bring a lot of, flavor dynamics to the dish. So those flakes are going to go in. We have a little oil that's going to go in as well. We have a little salt and pepper. I'm using black pepper today and kosher salt. So a little bit of that goes in as well. And then we're just going to stir it until it resembles a pancake batter. So hopefully you can all see that. And then, like any pancake batter, the chickpea flour is high in protein. We're going to allow this to rest a little bit. About 30 minutes will do it. You can make it the day before if you have time, and that would work out just fine. So just got to blend it together. As such, we're going to put it off to the side, and that's going to rest for about 30 minutes. So I've obviously made some ahead of time before we were on camera. And I'm going to choose a silicone mold today. I don't know if you can see that, but we have a silicone mold here, and there's many different shapes of those molds. Here's sort of a rectangle one. I'm going to choose to use a round one today. We're going to spray a little bit of food spray to help prevent them from sticking. And I'm going to use a little fondant funnel to help me portion it. So I'm going to add that rested batter to the portioning device. And then I'm going to portion a small amount. I want these wafers to be on the thin side. So about an ounce or so. And prior to this, part of the other ingredient here is wild rice. That's also on the 50 Future Food Report. And I've used the boiling method, sometimes referred to as the pasta method, for cooking the wild rice. And if you've ever worked with wild rice, it's really a grass, not really a rice, but it takes quite a while for this to cook in any way that you're going to cook it, whether it's going to be pilaf style or whether it's going to be the boiling method. So I brought about a gallon of water to the boil. I've added the grain into the water that's boiling, and I've cooked it until it's tender and, you know, exploded open. Basically, we know the grains are cooked when they sort of puff open like popcorn. So what you're looking for in the wild rice is for mostly all of those grains to be opened up and tender. There's always, again, this particular item has that nuttiness, that flavor profile, and it also has that texture, right? It's never going to be completely tender like a white rice can be, you know, very tender without much resistance on your palate. The beauty about whole grains like this is it's good for us, high in fiber, has a different flavor profile, but also has that texture that we're desiring. So I'm going to add a little bit of this cooked wild rice on top of the portioned batter here. And again, that's going to give us a little bit of texture and a little bit of flavor. And then this gets popped in a moderate oven. 350 works. Just until the batter is set and it's rested until we can unmold it. And then later on, I'll show you that we're going to crisp it up to add some texture to the dish. So it's as easy as that. And then this is going to go in that 350-degree oven for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now, as I spoke about earlier, this is the new wave plant-based shrimp. And what attracted me to this product is obviously that it's plant-based. One of the other things is it looks like a shrimp. And oddly enough, it has a similar texture to shrimp. I think if you close your eyes, it also has a little bit of flavor that reminds you of shrimp. And I think if you close your eyes and you're eating this, you could imagine that you're eating shrimp. Oddly enough, you know, I think in developing a lot of plant-based dishes, you know, some of these particular products weren't available a long time ago. So I think embracing something like this could be, you know, one way to bring some interest into the dish that you're creating. So these are the plant-based shrimp items. We're going to use 3 of these per 5 pieces of this plant-based shrimp item. It's 80 calories. So there's not a tremendous amount of calories in these shrimp. So I'm going to get started as well with the sauce. So the sauce consists of cashews, and one of the great things about cashews is they're obviously going to bring this creaminess to the sauce, like a high fat item like heavy cream, but without all that dairy fat. So they're going to give us that smooth texture. And one of the things that you want to do is put the cashews in some water, bring them to a boil, shut that heat off, and allow them to sit for 5 or 10 minutes. I've also included a jalapeno in there, and that's going to give us a little bit of diversity in terms of that spice level. And then we're going to strain this. And I've already kind of done that, brought them to a boil, lowered them to a simmer, shut it off for about 5 minutes. And at this point, we're going to drain it. And this is the loudest part of this demo, I think. So I'm going to drain these. And then I'm going to add them to my blender. And again, I have some oat milk that I'm going to use. So we're going to add the oat milk to the blender. We're going to add a little lemon juice. And we're going to add a little salt and a little pepper. We're also going to add a large bunch of cilantro. And maybe more water if necessary. So I'm going to put the lid. And I'm going to turn the blender on. So it takes a little bit to get that cilantro to go, but. And we'll just grab a rubber spatula. Help this along a little bit. So we'll take a little bit of smashing down, maybe a little bit more water.
Chef, we did have a question come in. I hope you don't mind.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. One of the questions that came in was if someone does not have access to a plant-based shrimp, are there any substitutions for this dish that you might be able to suggest?
Yeah, I think this dish makes sense with fish as well. So a fish that could be sautéed, maybe black cod would be an example of a fish I might use with this item. But I think fish makes a lot of sense with this with the flavor profiles of this dish. So I would try that. All right, let me get this mixed up. A little more water. All right, sorry about that, but now that we have our sauce, and you can see that it's nice and smooth. So you want to blend it until it's very smooth. We'll allow that to hang out over there. Next thing I want to do is talk about the mushrooms that are going to go into the spinach mixture. So I've have some maitake mushrooms, and mushrooms are high in glutamic acid. that is that umami characteristic or flavor profile that we like so much. So I've tossed them with a little tamari or soy sauce, a little bit of oil, and I've roasted them in a low oven until they're crispy and quite dry. So they're going to give us some texture to that. Let's check our pancakes here, our little crisps. And you can see that when they're basically dry to the touch, they're ready to go. So these are ready, and I think it only took about 5 minutes or so. So we'll let them rest. And then in this pan for the spinach mixture, I've caramelized some onions. So I don't know if you can get a shot of that, but the onions are caramelized, which anytime we brown food, it's going to change that flavor profile. So brown flavors taste a lot different than flavors that haven't been browned. So we're going to add the fire to this and bring them back up to heat. We're also going to add some minced garlic to the pan at this point. So the onions are caramelized. The garlic will only take a moment or two. And we also have some nutritional yeast that's going to go in there, some red pepper flakes, some scallions, chives, and cilantro. So while this is heating up, I'm going to chiffonade my cilantro. So in order to chiffonade herbs like this, I kind of bring them up into a ball and then cross-cut them very thinly. So you can get a lot done a little bit quicker this way. So chiffonade is a thin shred, typically done with leafy herbs or vegetables. So that's ready. And then chives. I don't know if you've seen this trick before, but chives also fray a little bit at the end. So what I do is I grab a paper towel and I fold it up and I wet it. And then I lay the chives on the wet paper towel and roll them up. So it's like an extra pair of hands. So I can hold the top portion that I'm going to cut and the bottom portion doesn't fray. So that's a little trick that I use to kind of keep the chives together. So we just need about a tablespoon of those. The garlic is now sweated a little bit. We don't really need a lot of color on the garlic because that'll change the flavor on that. And at this point, we're going to add our spinach. So we have quite a bit of spinach here that will wilt down. So if there are any questions along the way, please jump in. And if I can answer them now, I will, or otherwise we can hold some until the end.
Sure. Well, a question has come in. Maybe if you could speak a little bit more to the mushrooms that you were using. And of course, if there's any substitution you might suggest if the chef doesn't have that in their pantry.
You know, I think mushrooms are part of the Future 50 Foods report as well. They specifically mention the maitake mushrooms. That's kind of why I chose that. But another mushroom like shiitake would work really well, or any of the mushrooms that you like, I think would work well in this dish. And again, mushrooms are naturally high in natural umami flavor profiles, and that's why I chose it, because it's going to be naturally there, and then concentrating it by cooking it further, and the use of tamari or soy sauce will bring a lot of flavor into that.
Wonderful, thank you. And one of the other questions, we do have some schools who are tuning in today. And so one of the questions was about if you do have any advice for aspiring chefs who are going to be entering the profession.
Well, I think this is an industry that has a lot of diversity to it. Now, I am a graduate from the Institute in 1988. And, I can remember back then, most of the people coming into the school at that point really just wanted to be a chef. Now we have a lot of diversity in, different areas that we can go into that is, I think, opening up the industry more to, enlightening other people to join this industry. It's exciting. One of the things that I've always loved about it is it's ever changing. It's very exciting. And there's a lot of growth that you can have. I mean, early on, I knew I wanted to get back or get into the education division of this particular industry. But I think, there's a lot of other areas that you can explore. So here at the Institute, there's a lot of areas that, a lot of different degree paths as well that you might be interested in. So that's wilted a little bit. We're then going to add the mushrooms that we've cooked. So they go in. And we're going to add nutritional yeast. So the heat's off right now. We're using the residual heat here to finish the cooking process. We also are going to add lemon zest. Again, to brighten up the flavors here. And we're going to add our cilantro. And chives. Okay, we're going to reserve this for the plate up a little later. And obviously a little salt and pepper would be good. And then like always, we want to taste it. We want to see if it needs to be adjusted. Good, I think that's nice. It's got a nice balance of flavor. You taste that acid profile from the lemon, and the mushrooms give us a nice meaty flavor along with the nutritional yeast. Good, so that works. And then let's talk about these little cakes here, these little crisps. So let's pop one out. And you can see they pop out quite easily. And then I'm going to use a small little cutter to cut out, to give us a little more interest, to cut out the center here. Not necessary, but I find that it looks a little different on the presentation. So these are our soon-to-be crisps. Okay, one other thing I need to do is to make a little oil, and this oil is going to consist of olive oil and Korean pepper flakes. So I just want to bring the oil up to temperature, meaning that we don't really want it too hot. So just want to warm up the oil and then allow that red pepper flake to steep like tea. And that's going to give us a really nice, flavorful, colored oil that we can use to drizzle on the plate.
Chef, we did have another question come in regarding the preparation of the plant-based shrimp. So for the chefs and cooks who are tuning in who have never used that product, they were wondering if it's possible to overcook it, or what you might recommend.
Well, it does interesting in experimenting with it. It does work like a regular shrimp, meaning that there's other cooking methods that you can apply. I'm going to saute it today. It works really well for saute. It can be grilled. It can be steamed. So, is it possible to overcook it? I guess, largely it's made up of water. It's made up of mung bean protein and modified potato starch. So that's really the main ingredients that make it up. So yeah, I mean, it does have some moisture. So I think it is possible to overcook it. And the beauty about it is it just needs to be either marked on a grill to warm it through, or in my case, I'm going to saute it. So it doesn't take a lot of heat. Just got to kind of warm it up. So that oil is up to temperature. We're going to allow that to steep. And I'm going to cut some scallions on a biased, which is an angled cut. So I want to kind of cut them as a garnish later on. So I'm just kind of cutting them on a angled cut called bias. And I want to cut them kind of on a long bias. And they will look a little nicer on the plate. I hope most of you are in a warm place today. I know here in New York, it's snowing out right now, believe it or not. Spring has not come yet. So, okay, so we have our oil ready. We have our filling ready. We have our crisp ready. We have our garnish ready. We have our sauce ready. So at this point, we can get into finishing the dish. So we're going to heat up a nonstick pan. We're going to add a little olive oil to the pan. And we're going to add our shrimp. We're going to season the shrimp with a little salt and pepper. Just like we would if they were regular shrimp. And they brown really quite nicely. So we're going to add the shrimp to the pan that's moderately hot. And they're only going to take a minute or two to brown.
All right, Chef, we do have another question coming in, and that is, in addition to the traditional career pathways in food service, like restaurants and hotels, what do you feel are emerging areas in the food service industry for jobs outside of the kitchen, potentially?
Well, I think one of them is environmental sustainability. And we recently launched a a degree in that, and it's an exciting area. I know that we are all concerned about how the food industry is changing and how we need to adapt to it. So I think that's one area that I would be interested in and maybe to look at. Going from almost 8 billion people to 10 billion people, we can realize that things that we have done in the past may not be the way that we have to do them in the future. And that is, creating better food systems, I think, largely. And we're all, especially us as chefs that feed people, we're the ones that can make an impact, as well as every other person out there doing a small part. So I think that's one area that I would look at.
Wonderful, great advice. And a technical question came in. One of the viewers is wondering if you could speak to the difference in using table salt versus kosher salt in your cooking.
Well, the table salt typically has iodine in it. So, as chefs, I think we really don't want to add any other ingredients that may not really benefit the dish. So, iodine was put in a long time ago to help with our diet. Kosher salt, I mean, in general, though, salt is sodium chloride. It's basically the same, salt, whether it's sea salt, table salt, or kosher salt. Kosher salt does have, it's bigger typically, so the granular part is bigger. So the same amount of kosher salt compared to table salt is going to have, a different sodium amount because of the way that it's designed as far as the flake size of it. And I think we're mostly aware of sea salt. It has trace elements in it that give us, depending on where it comes from, gives us a little bit of flavor difference than pure salt. All right, so we're just browning these up. We're going to reserve them warm. And while they're browning, in the same pan, I'm going to add one of these crisps. I'll add a couple of them. So that'll take on some of the flavor of the plant-based shrimp. I don't know if you can see this, but the shrimp are becoming golden brown.
Well, I wish we could smell it through the screen for sure.
It does definitely smell like shrimp. Oddly enough, it has that texture, having tasted it several times in this development process. It does have a flavor profile that mimics shrimp. It does have a texture element as well.
Very, very interesting.
But it is all plant-based.
Excellent. Well, we have some other questions coming in. One of them, if you don't mind, is, in your opinion, what do you think the main challenges are for chefs who are looking to move their menus towards plant-based options?
Well, I think, getting people interested. That's why I kind of went over those key factors that I use to develop a dish. I think you need to find ways to have people get excited over, what's on the menu. Okay, so these are ready. So, and part of that is maybe bringing in, new products, getting them excited about, are we going to eliminate meat from the diet? Probably not. And I don't think, I want that to happen. But can we, offer a person to eat plant-based items, more? Maybe they can eat it once a week instead of having, meat items, every day. Can we do that? Or can we look at the protein flip? Many of us may have heard about the protein flip, where the center of the plate in, early on was more about the large protein item and less about the plant-based items that are on that plate. Can we shift that? I think that's one of the things that can help, maybe bring more interest. I think look at components. Components drive interest. Typically, when you're doing a vegan item, you need those components. You need those different, components that offer different flavors. All right, so they're staying warm. We're going to bring them over here, and then we're going to start the plate up here. So we have a plate. I also have a ring mold here that we're going to use. We'll bring over our sauce. And we'll bring over our chili oil. Our spinach mixture is still nice and warm. So we're going to add some of the spinach mixture to the ring mold. So we'll just put some gloves on for this. So I'm using 3 shrimp today, more like an appetizer portion. I think 5 shrimp might be normal in an entree portion. There's another product out there that I have used a little bit called finless tuna. Finless Foods makes this product called finless tuna. It's made with winter melon and other ingredients as well. And it really looks like a raw tuna product. Again, closing your eyes and eating this product, kind of, you think you're eating tuna. It's got that texture. So there are, again, increasingly more ingredients coming out there that we as chefs need to think about. Is this reasonable to put on a menu? Is this gonna, get my customer interested? Okay, so we've got the ring mold. We're going to add a little bit of the sauce. And this is our cilantro cashew sauce. So we'll just drag that out. We're going to add our shrimp. We're going to add one of these crisps on top. A little bit of the chili oil. And then we'll garnish with a little bit of the scallions on top. A couple cilantro leaves. And that's our dish.
Looks absolutely gorgeous. I wish we were all there with you.
I wish you were too. So again, this dish would be great with another fish item. Maybe swordfish could work. As I said, the black cod would be another item that I might use for this. and, experiment with it, take a look at it. It may not be, something that fits, or it may. It's really up to you and your guest. So what questions do we have yet to answer?
Oh gosh, there's so many that we'll never be able to get to all of them at once. But I think one of them, there's a lot of questions about the method of cooking, but I think the other chefs are chatting amongst themselves in the chat bar. But how do you find your inspiration for these new dishes? And is there a process that you do use in your research and development?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always found inspiration from ingredients. I sort of look at ingredients, especially seasonality, and, I sort of listen to the ingredient, and I sort of work with that. That's kind of the way that this came about is, I looked at the shrimp as inspiration, and then I built the components and flavor profile around the shrimp. It is, a fairly new item, and I just think it brought some interest to me, and hopefully to the folks that might want to eat it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And one of the other questions for the professional chefs who are tuning in today, or maybe with the chef instructors as well, do you have any top tips for how they can implement some more sustainability or food waste practices in their kitchens?
Well, I guess going back to what we were talking about earlier is, just offering more. I think we as chefs have seen, or certainly I have seen over the years, the desire for more, vegetarian and vegan items. We wouldn't dare, create a menu, I think, at this point without having some diversity in terms of in terms of vegan items, or at least vegetarian items. I think the public at large is demanding more, more opportunity, more options out there. They're looking for it. And I think as chefs, it poses, I think creating a vegan dish is probably one of the more challenging, ways of creating a dish, because how do you get people excited about it? How do you get people interested about it? And, I think increasingly the vegans and the people that want to eat more plant-based items are looking for the dish to represent the same style as other dishes that are being offered on the menus. And I think that's what challenges. I can remember early in my career, somebody came in for a vegetable, entree. It was usually line vegetables. Like, in other words, what was on the line was what they really received. There wasn't really a lot of forethought put into developing a dish like the other dishes on there on the menu. So I think, this is an area why I chose the shrimp, is because I think if you have shrimp dishes, this would be an easy replacement where you may not have to redevelop a whole dish by implementing, this kind of product. I think that's a quick and easy way to go about it. Another, if this, kind of item isn't working, then obviously, go back to the drawing board regarding, the development stage.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. There was a couple, again, of some of the technical questions about the plant-based shrimp. The chefs are certainly going wild in the chat. So I guess I'll rattle a couple of them off. Do you need to thaw and or the plant before you were sauteing them? And are there any of the top allergens in that product?
I don't think there's any of the top allergens in this. And I think thawing it is best. It is a frozen product, so that does help in the storage department. But absolutely, defrosting it allows it to cook faster and heat up faster.
Well, great. Well, we'd love to hear any final thoughts that you have. I know this has been a very educational presentation, inspirational. I know that the chefs and culinary educators and cooks who are tuning in will certainly have a lot of food for thought after this presentation on how they can adjust their menus and recipes. So any final words that you'd love to leave the viewers with today?
Well, I think, I would recommend everyone looking at the Future 50 food report as inspiration. Take a look at those 50 foods. I mean, they're on that list and been studied for a variety of reasons. One is, how they offer more health to the planet and health to you as an individual, and also how they actually grown more. Some of them are, a drought tolerance. So, one of the other, areas that's concerning is our water, supply within the world, and how that, is impacting, many particular areas, more so than others. But we all have a part in that. So, and I think if we can use more of those 50 foods in our menus, and honestly, in looking at the list myself, we are already using many of those foods as chefs. It's just maybe a way that we can, tweak them to offer, a little bit more diversity in our menus.
Fabulous. Well, Chef, thank you so much. I know that everyone tuning in has enjoyed the presentation, and I know those who will watch the recording will as well. So I can see it in the chat, a huge virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Chef David Bruno, and to the team at the CIA. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your skills and your enthusiasm for the culinary craft with our ACF community of culinary professionals and students today. So thank you very much. We did include the Future 50 in the links in the chat as well for any of the chefs who would like to check that out. And for those of you tuning in, please be on the lookout for the survey and the recipe that you'll receive tomorrow with the recording. You'll need to complete the survey in order to earn your 1 hour of ACF CEH. And we have some great upcoming content. Get motivated on Mondays in April. We hope that you'll join us for our next webinar, which will be April 4th at 2 p.m. as we dive into some leadership topics such as restaurant law. This month we'll also be covering surviving the current costing nightmare. We'll be discussing how to build an effective kitchen team and much more. So April 4th at 2 p.m. And on April 6th, we'll also have a culinary sensory analysis webinar in collaboration with our partners at the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals. So you don't want to miss those. We also hope that you'll join us in Dallas for our Advanced Pastry Summit on May 14th. An amazing opportunity to learn from some top-notch pastry professionals and leaders and earn your advanced specialized certificate in pastry as well as the digital badge. So please visit acfchefs.org and click on the events tab to register now for the ACF Summit and also for the ACF National Convention in Las Vegas, July 25th to the 28th. You definitely don't want to miss it at Caesars Forum. So on behalf of the ACF National Office, thank you again, of course, to our special guest, Chef David Bruno, for bringing us this delicious learning opportunity and opening our eyes on some new techniques in plant-forward cuisine. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you,
very
Jackie.
much. Thank you,
Thank
Chef.
you, everyone. Be well.